say that also Harry Wayne, one of my colleagues, is also in the call and will be available for questions, both of us. At the end, we just wanted to make sure that we represent ourselves on a sufficient level. We budgeted 20 minutes for this, but I'll aim to talk less. And please type your questions in the QA box in the bottom of the screen. So let's go to the first slide. Just a very basic best practice and guidance in how to fill in an investment plan. I think Stockholm and Cluj demonstrated very well that what is the level of detail, what is just excellent at this stage. We would advise to use the template as a guidance tool to develop your investment plan. Of course, it's a template. It's uniform, so sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't fit. But the main idea is that to develop these plans from the same level from ground up, and obviously the template has some limitations, but it also gives a pretty good control and pretty good guide that how you should think about your whole investment planning process. It's beneficial to fill out every section, and it also helps you to think of the gaps. And we will also provide you the completeness checklist as a guide. And this is another document supplementing the template itself. In the completeness checklist, you will see that what are the criteria, what we are gonna look at the end while reading your investment plan. And it's also a good idea when you submit your investment plan to also submit a self-evaluation of the CCC completeness checklist as well, and of course engage with your city advisors to make sure that everything is understood, and also to connect to us. The next 3 slides is going to contain best practices and things to avoid from the 3 main sections of the investment plan. So we will start with Part A, which is the current state. We will continue with Part B, which is the path towards net zero in 2030, and we will close with Part C, the climate policies for capital deployment. If you start with Part A, here the goal is to have a very clear understanding that what is the status quo, where are we right now. On the left-hand side, you can see the best practices, what we saw from investment plans. On the right-hand side, you can see what are things to avoid. What we can say as a best practice is that you should map all activities fully within city borders. Don't leave out companies which also have some emissions, and think the whole city as one entity, and show all the current and planned budgeted activities what you can see. Second is that divide these activities by sectors, so not by city department. It makes talking about this a bit easy, and also easier and presenting them as well. It's also important to provide a precise city budget in your local currency unit, and also income sources and capital sources, what you have, and be as specific as you can. So it's very important to see the exact currency amount, and also make sure that you differentiate among the barriers, whether they structural, fiscal, or economic barriers, and also try to describe possible mitigating actions, what can be done in order to avoid these barriers. On the don't slide, so on the avoid side of the story, we would advise everybody to provide a holistic picture about the entirety of investment. So don't go too much into details in some investments and leave other investments out. I think at this stage, the most important thing is to have a very clear view that where are we standing, what is the whole group of investments what you are talking about, and avoiding only municipal income sources like taxes, also a guideline to follow. Be sure to also include grants or special financial instruments such as green bonds in your status quo description. And what is also crucial to assess the internal capacity in your organization to raise capital, and also have a clear view that where you stand on that front. And we can go to the next slide to part B, where we actually give a few guidance in the same structure about what are the paths to follow towards 2030 and towards net zero. Here, what we think is that providing a precise cost estimate in terms of OPEX, CAPEX, also providing a precise emission estimate, and also have a clear view about the co-benefits is very vital. We definitely advise to do this. Also, if you can differentiate between public and private capital sources on a project-by-project basis, that would make the whole picture a lot more clearer. And it's also very important for future investors to have an understanding that where do you stand on a project-per-project basis. And it's also worthwhile to note here that indicators should be identified, which are important both from climate and also finance point of view. So, for example, indicators like euro per decreased CO2 kilograms is a good example, and also take into account indicators that are important for private and also public stakeholders as well. In this section, things to avoid, for example, you should avoid to only cost for public entities. I think Stockholm example is just very clearly show that most of the emitters can be private, and it's very important to right from the beginning, so right from the investment planning crafting stage, to also include them in the costing exercise. This will give everybody a much better understanding that what has to be moved in order to achieve net zero. Of course, it's not an easy journey, but we have to be clear about the situation. It's also a thing to avoid is to not link capital to projects. So also do this, and also avoid only focusing on public funding sources. So be sure to include private capital or funded finance as well in your exercise. And at the end, in terms of monitoring process, we saw in a few cases that the action plan monitoring process was duplicated here in the investment plan, and we would ask everybody to not do that and to come up with a separate monitoring system, financial monitoring system, which can be used in the investment plan. And in the third section, on the next slide, we give a few guiding points about the climate policies for capital formation and deployment. So what we saw here as really a best practice is that policies which support and also which hinder the climate spending and climate borrowing process are enumerated. It's important to have, again, a complete view about this. Again, categorizing and detailing risks is an important factor here as well, whether they are like financial, regulatory, transactional, policy-related risk. What is the likelihood of their occurrence? What is the impact? What they can have and how we can mitigate them. Feel free to go into detail regarding this one, as crisp risk description is the more we like it and the more we think it's useful. Also, what is a guideline to follow is that stakeholders should be mapped extensively, and their influence and their impact should be also be part of the investment plan. So, for example, if you have like a district heating company and the city owns half of it, half is owned by the private entity, that's a very important stakeholder we have to deal with, and any detail regarding their participation, their actions, their attitude, their influence, their impact on your whole climate plan is very focal in this part of the process, and in understanding what sort of capital have to be moved to make net zero possible. Here in the avoid slide, one of the very simple suggestions what we would have is that don't leave this section blank. It's important. In some cases, we saw that this section wasn't really filled in. And also try to avoid the generic risk identification and identify risks on a project level. And then the final don't is that you should avoid not mapping stakeholders or mapping them superficially and not detailing their impact and the potential for engagement. The last slide in our section is the learnings and what do we experienced so far. So in window 1, we saw a lot of investment plans, and we also wanted to give you a very good idea that how window 2 could look like. So during the summer period in June, July, and for the Scandinavian cities again, like in August as well, we are happy to provide live touch reviews on IPs and on every question. So feel free to contact us through your city advisor or through the smart sheet as well. Just let us know that there's a question, and we will do our best to answer it. And we would like to do that because in September we have the IP submission deadline, and it's important to have like as good plans as we can have, because then we'll have a very short period of providing you the checklist, and then have one more iteration before you submit your final investment plan. What is important to note here that with the checklist, we only provide a completeness check and not necessarily a quality check. This is a gradual process. There's a lot of cities, a lot of stakeholders, and what we want to make sure that we take one step at a time. So let's have a good understanding about capital moved, project, stakeholders, risks. Let's put it into a plan. Let's make sure that everything is in the plan. Let's develop all the plans to the same level. And then in a later stage, we of course go into more qualitative discussions. But with this, we are providing a completeness check and not necessarily a quality check. Of course, if there's something is like completely off, let's raise it and let's have a discussion about that. But in the first stage, we provide now more of a completeness check and a feedback on your IP. And with this, I would like to pause and open the floor for questions. Agnes, you raised your hand.
Yes.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, I thought it is the shortest way.
Yeah, but then we don't know the order. But now go on, and then Michaela.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm wondering if you get more help to make the calculations. So Svea, our city advisor, told us that there is a new instrument, an economic module tool in work that we can use in the cities to calculate the costs for the investments and to connect the action plan with the investment plan. Is that true, and is it planned, and when?
The economic model and how we can use the economic model in the investment plan, right? So this is the question.
Yes. What could we expect, and when could we expect that module? Yeah,
that module is and Harry, feel free to jump in here. Is is developed by UPM Madrid, and they are the ones who also provide some training, and they also provide access to that. But I suspect it should be available like during summer, right? So during this time, in order to use it for the IPs. But Mannheim already submitted the IP, right? And now we talk about Windows 2.
Yes, but we would like to improve.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a fair question. So Harry, I think summertime, right?
Yeah,
so in the upcoming weeks.
We've been doing a little bit of work with UPM on actually testing it, working with a few cities individually to make something that's useful and packaged for making it available. And I understand that part of the next round of work that we're looking to do is actually making it much more accessible as well. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully we can get it as soon as possible to more scale rollout.
Yeah, exactly. Does it answer your question, Agnes?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure. But yeah, it's definitely, and I think that's a great tool. So use it as much as you can. We have a question from Michaela. I'm gonna unmute you now. Michaela?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, how do we get hold of you if need be when writing the documents and all that? I'm new on this platform, so it's yeah.
No worries, it's perfectly understandable. As also Jane wrote in the chat, like through the city advisors.
Right.
So if you your city advisor, and they are the one who are managing the relationship, yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure. Any other question? Was it clear in terms of like the do's and don'ts? I mean, like we try to give like as palpable examples as possible that based on the investment plans we reviewed and the feedback we gave in window 1, what are the common things to improve and to do so. We try to summarize it as concretely as we can. And it's a process, so it's not happening overnight, especially within city space, having a lot of stakeholders involved. So we're going to get through it together, and then it takes time.
Yeah. Just as a quick thing, I guess from my side, I've spoken to a number of cities on this panel, so really pleased to see you all here, and thanks for turning up. I think, as with anything, engagement is really key, and we found the investment planning exercise, it requires a few steps to get to the answer that's useful for your city. So, for example, with co-benefits, we found that a few people have found it useful to detail and descriptively discuss some of the co-benefits that are available before then going into more detail of how it can be useful to elaborate on it. And I guess this sort of comes back to your question, Ioannis, to where you put avoid detailing investments. What we meant there is avoid detailing a few specific investments. So rather than going into a small amount of detail on a lot of detail on a few investments, look at try to get a big picture of what's useful for the city before then going into detail of what works. And actually, we have spoken with a couple of cities who took a different approach of going into detail on individual investments and then expanding the work out. And that's not necessarily the worst thing, but what we think is useful is making sure that the picture of the whole transition is covered with it, and know that you're comfortable with what you're planning on doing before then launching into detail. But I hope that's helpful, and hopefully we can then also provide a little bit of support on how to better elaborate on that as well.
Thank you, Harry. Thanks for giving the whole context. We have a question from CCC from Paris. I unmuted you right now. Experts. Let me know if we cannot hear you, but now we can hear you. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it was just a quick question about the experts that will help us to develop our investment plan. I heard there was some organizations such as I4CE, Institute for Climate Economics, that could help us. Is that correct? And how can we get in touch with them? I mean, if you can tell us a bit more about the help from experts, please. Thanks.
Julie, maybe you have an answer for this? No? I think that I'm trying to find your city advisor, Cecile, or maybe you know who is the person.
Yeah, we'll ask Julie then.
Yeah. Sorry, probably that's a better idea. And I think, and just correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that every city has like different sort of expert groups in order to help them. So like in a whole EU and the NetZeroCities consortium level, there is no one unified answer for this question. But I might not be correct. Harry, am I correct or not? Or Julie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Cecile. For I4C, unfortunately, we don't have more information. They're not part of the mission platform from where we draw experts from. So through your city advisor, the first step usually is to connect you to people within the mission platform. So such as Ade and Harry here, who are from Bankers Without Boundaries. And this is kind of the first step of engagement, and only when within the mission platform we don't have experts who are able to help you, we would potentially look further within the wider ecosystem. I think this might be where I4CE would be placed. I think on our end we haven't heard from them directly. And then of course, as we've heard from other panelists today, we really encourage you to also look within your local stakeholders to bring people together and get the information and the commitments from the various stakeholders.
Yep, that is correct. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, and also Jane wrote the same thing in the chat. We have 3 more minutes and one question from Paolo. Paolo, please.
So my question was if when involving the stakeholders into the investment plan, that should we group them by different sectors and then to plan the things that way, or should we be more specific and to mention them one by one? Thanks.
Great question. I think it's one by one, but Harry, feel free to elaborate in more detail.
Yeah, I think one by one is useful to make sure that you can then get plans out of them. But that being said, we do have in the template space to group things by sector as well to ensure that it's, I guess, more to align it with the action plan and help to work out where things are best kept. But agree, yeah, it's useful to make sure you can do a deep dive on projects individually. And this is something that we've been discussing internally with investors, is actually what is it that they're looking for? What are the things that we can then help to develop out of these, and focus in on the projects individually can help with that.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there like any other questions for the last 1 minute, or we can close today? If not, then thanks a lot for your very active participation. Thank you for Julie for organizing the whole session and for Climate Kick to give us the platform to share our thoughts. Thanks a lot for Stockholm colleagues and also to Cluj colleagues to share their great experiences and their great results so far in the investment planning, and also Aluka from Frankfurt School to give a short introduction to this. But the biggest thanks goes for all of you, the participants who were like very active today and asked great questions. Like when we go forward in this journey, just please use your city advisors to reach us, and we will do everything in our power to assist you in getting to net zero by 2030.